Today I wanted to go over some of the quiz questions from last week, and I also want to show you a powerful tool that you can use to step through the code and look at what everything's doing line by line, and in that way get a greater understanding of how the code works and how all these components work together. So I have the quiz open. I'm going to take the last question and copy it. And I'm going to go open PyCharm down here. So PyCharm is an IDE that I like to use. It has powerful debugging tools, and it's just it's a pleasure to use. It's really cool. So here we go. So I go ahead and paste it here. And I need a close-up. Hang on. Okay, I've increased the font size, and I'm going to put spaces between these for readability's sake. Okay, and I'm going to add a breakpoint here, and I'm going to press the debugging tool here. It's a button with a little bug on it. Okay. So it looks like it's running a different program here. It defaults to main, so I forgot to set it to debug this file, test1py. So I'm going to click over here. So I click on this tab. I stop debugging, and I click on this drop-down menu here. Right now it says main because it's running the main.py program, and I'm going to put current file instead. And so the current file right now is test1.py. So now this one should run. So I'm going to try debugging again. Okay. And the buttons down here are used to step through the code. You step through a code, you can step into a function. With this one, you can do a couple of other things that I don't really do. I just use this button here. So I use this one and this one. So I step over, and X is instantiated as 13, Y is instantiated as 11, and an output is set to an empty string. So as with these while loops, remember there's two parts to these. There's the while keyword that initializes what the statement's going to do, and there are the conditions. So in this case, there's a condition x less than 14 or y less than 2, and that means that only one of these or both of these need to be true for the code below to code that's indented to run. Okay, so I'm going to step over again. All right. And at each step, I know what the values are. It says so down here. It's a little too small from there, but this is a 14. This is y is 11. The output at the very top says A. So I move again. And because the conditions are still occurring, we're going to check. So if you hover over a condition on this IDE, it shows you what it evaluates to. So this says false, and if I hover over this one says false. So if both of them are false, you already know what's going to happen. This is not going to run the bottom code anymore. And it just prints the output. Okay. And I step over, and A. That's the output. That's printed here. And if you want, I can show you a couple other things. So I can show you how to make a new file on this IDE. So I go up to File. I'm going to actually show you how to start this from scratch. Hang on. Let me close these two. Okay. So PyCharm is something you can download online for free. So I just typed in PyCharm and then I click on this first link that pops up. And on the top right, I click the download button. And there's two versions. There's a professional version that costs money, and there's a free version that does everything that we need it to do for free. So I'm going to go ahead and press the download button here. Likewise, you'd press it on your own. And it's going to take a couple minutes, so I'm going to press pause, and when I press play again, it'll be ready. Okay, so the executable is ready. It's downloaded. We press it to run it. So it's going to open up, should open up a menu that asks me if I want to make these changes. It's a black screen for you, but for me it says, do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? Yes. I click yes. And then the task wizard shows up. So the setup wizard, I'm sorry, not the task wizard. The setup wizard shows up, and we just walk through the instructions. Okay, and since I already have it installed, an uninstall screen comes in. So you would just go through the steps and install it. And I'm going to quit the setup, but you wouldn't. So now I have it open. Okay. And when you open it for the first time, you should have a screen like this where there aren't any files. And you probably won't have anything here either. So the first thing you're going to do is create a project. So I'm going to say File and then New Project here at the top. Okay, I'm going to call this Python Test Environment. And you can call it what makes sense to you. But just in this example, I'm going to call it Python Test Environment. And notice, well, you can't notice because it's too small, but I'm using camel casing. So I press the Create button and open this project in this window. Okay. And then on the left, you'll see that I have a folder, Python Test Environment. Now that I have this, I can add files to it. So, oh, it's finishing up its setup here, creating virtual environment. Okay, so it automatically creates a default page, a main.py. We're not going to use this. So we are going to create our own file, and what we need to do is we right-click on the project folder that we just made, New Python file. So project, new Python file, and we got that by right-clicking on the folder. And I'm going to call this one just test1, nondescript, and I'm going to press enter. And I get a blank page. I'm going to close this one, and I'm going to go ahead and do another code here. Let's look at another one of these. How about this one? Okay. And I paste it here. I add my spaces for readability. You should be putting spaces between these two. Okay. And then remember, when we first go to debug or run the program, it's going to try to run the main program first, the thing it had open. So you're going to need to change that to current file. Then you run it and it should run this, the current file. So I'm going to debug again. All right. Oh, I forgot to put a breakpoint. So I could put the breakpoint wherever I want. How about, since I understand these pretty easily, the instantiation of the variables, and I only need help with the while part, I'll put the breakpoint there. And then I'll press the debug button again. And I have x equals 15, y equals -1. And as I step through, I'm able to check how things evaluate. So this evaluated to false, this evaluated to true, and because it's or, only one of these need to be true, one or both, for the code that's indented below to run. and you can just continue to step through, and then it checks again. False. True. So it's going to run again because at least one of these is true. So the indented code will run, and then we check again. False. True. So again, the code that's indented is going to run. We check again. False. False. So because both of these are false, then the code that's indented below will not run. We'll go right over that and go to the next piece of code that is no longer indented. And in this case, it's a print statement. We're going to print the output. I'm going to press step over. Okay. And we have the output 3A's. So it's a little bit easier to see what's going on with the code when you're able to debug it and step through it and look at each component as it's running. It makes things a lot easier, and I think it's a very helpful learning tool, and I want you to try to use it. Even if you're doing good in this class or you understand the concepts very well, I still recommend this debugger, this IDE, because it has tools that REPL won't have, and you'll be able to save your files locally. And on top of that, it's also pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to minimize that. Okay, so if you need any help with the installation, or you have any questions about the IDE, or you just have any questions in general, feel free to reach out. I'm always a message away. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful day.